Welcome to our discussion segment, where this morning we'll be looking at an issue that has become of a national concern. In the last couple of days, we have seen all forms of building collapse, from Lagos to Osun to Jos to Abuja and to other parts of the country. And the one particularly from Jos was one that left a very bitter taste in the mouths of Nigerians, where we lost over 20 pupils and a number of teachers, and several of them are still in the hospital recuperating. It's sad tale, and one that has almost become, a repeated conversation every other time in this country, especially when the rain sets in and the soils become very soft and non-compact. You see most of these, structures giving way, and then we see government officials pumping out to begin to lay blames from one point to the other about how poor quality materials were deployed in the building, forgetting, of course, as we mentioned in this program sometimes back, that they have the structures to have guaranteed the quality of the structures, from the substructures to the superstructures where they failed. So it's a sorry situation in Nigeria, where we have recorded over 135 collapse incidents and at least 26 deaths between 2022 and 2024 alone, with the most recent incident occurring in Kubwa, a suburb in the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja. As of 2024, there have been 17 recorded building collapse cases alone, with Lagos having 5, Anambra 3, Kano and Niger and Plateau states having 1 each. But I bet all of them very deadly as they come. The Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria have called for sanctions on developers responsible, for the recent collapse of buildings in Abuja, following 3 collapses in 3 days. The chairman of the council, Dr. Samson Opalua, blamed government negligence in enforcing laws and regulations and demanded thorough investigations and punishment of the culprit. We have to double down on all of this recognition. Joining us this morning in the studio is Ameh Peters. Ameh is the spokesperson of the Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria. Good morning, Ameh.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Thank you. I would first of all want to appreciate you for giving us this opportunity to speak to the public, and to also state here that I am the National Publicity Secretary of the Nigerian Institute of Building, and a member of the Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria.
Nice. Okay, and
yes, my name is Builder Omale Peter Ameh, FNIOB. Thank you.
So let me just point out something from what he just did. There had been this raging conversation about how you address builders. I have the same debate with my wife at home, who is also a builder, and we are quick to always tell you that they are builder this or builder that. And we appreciate that correction, but it shows you how much of a stakeholder he is as far as this conversation is concerned.
Yes.
We seem to be going in circles. Every time there's a building collapse, we show up with all of these emotions, around how something has not been properly done, recounting how several stakeholders within the build in the environments have not lived up to the expectations. We blame the regulatory environment for also not discharging its responsibility. How long can we continue to lament? Because basically this is just a book of lamentation, as it is for us in Nigeria.
Okay. For us, I think is beginning. We are sounding like a broken record on this issue already, and it shouldn't be. As a country, we've grown far, we've come far in area of science and technology of building, and so we do not expect this kind of incidents happening at the rate is going. I know sometimes, like far as 10 years ago, I granted an interview to NTA, and I told them on that interview that with the actions being taken by all the stakeholders, government, private sector, developers, clients, and the general public, building collapse may not stop in the near future. I'm saying 10 years ago, and we are still in it up till today. What is the problem? What are we not doing right? would look at it that building collapse is not a one-faceted issue. So there are multi-pronged approach that could arise to building collapse. And most time you hear people saying when the rains are here, but there are people that are also living on island and the buildings are not collapsing. So why is it that buildings should collapse in Abuja? Why should building collapse in Jos? Why should building collapse in Lagos? It means there is something, or there are things that we're supposed to do that we're not doing right. And the issue of passing the buck all the time is not what we should be talking right now. There are several building collapses that have taken place in the past. Investigations, panels were set up, reports. Who has been sanctioned? Nobody. I recall, I think sometime in 2007, just around this environment, there was a massive collapse here. And up till today, I don't think there's anything that has been said about that collapse. Just across the road, about 3 or 4 years ago, the same issue happened. Within this, I'm talking of a 1 kilometer radius from where we're seated. Massive collapse happened. The one just across the road here, one of my boys died there. He went to look for his daily bread and he didn't come back. It was much later the workers were telling me Dogo went to work and didn't come back.
But give us a sense, of how we should situate some of the blames.
Okay.
Where do these whole flaws begin from? Because I understand that there are various facets to the building. First of all, it even begins with the architectural drawing.
Yes.
You can spot flaws even from the architectural drawing. Then it comes to the civil engineering work, then the substandard matter. But tell us exactly where we can begin to arrest what we currently see in our society.
Okay, now you see the building is it has a large chain value. So there are so many professionals involved. And so most times in our own climb here, as professionals, we need to work together. We are not doing that. And so there is need for this professional synergy. You cannot wake up as a professional, you will design, you will cost, you will implement. It's a wrong approach. So if there is no teamwork, what I can spot out as issues that can arise, maybe in the course of doing my buildability and maintainability analysis, I should be able to tell you that the positioning of this member will interfere with this. Can we move it this way? And so probably because of your own knowledge base, you may not have that background also. You are just doing, because a lot of, especially now that we do garbage in on system and garbage out, is what you give to the system that it will produce back to you. Back in the days, there is manual calculation sheet and everything, but that's not the issue today. And why is it that you go to Ahmed Bello University, you see structures that have been built 60 years old, they are still there. You go to the Nigerian Railway Corporations, you see these buildings standing. What have they done right that we are not doing?
If you can help us dimension the issues from, a parallel point of view. I mean, buildings do collapse, whether it's from tsunamis, landslides, hurricanes, but that's not what we're talking about here.
Yes.
None of the buildings are collapsing because of a tsunami, because of a hurricane. We don't even have hurricanes like that in this country. Give me a sense of what the issues are, especially if you look at some of the common denominators, because we talk about building codes, we talk about regulations, we talk about due diligence, we talk about approvals, the red tapes that usually should go with any building construction in this country. What separates our case from the case of any other building collapse in other parts of the world?
Okay, the thing is that, just like you mentioned, the due diligence that we're supposed to do here, we are not really doing it. That is it. And it starts from the design to point of approval, from point of approval to implementation. And even in the course of implementation, you're supposed to be having interim approvals. It therefore means that there are professionals in the regulatory control agencies, be it either in Abuja or at the states, that are supposed to vet what has been submitted. The school that collapsed in Jos, they definitely have the Housing and Urban Development Authority in Plateau that would have approved that that building is okay to be erected. And they also are supposed to be part of the construction, meaning they are supposed to oversight or oversee the implementation stage by stage up until when it is certified that the building is good for habitation.
Builder, do you think we have the manpower to do that? We're talking about one government agency supervising hundreds of buildings at the same time.
Yes. Now
across various states.
Yes. Now,
is that even possible?
Yeah. You know, we have 774 local governments in Nigeria, and so all the local governments have building control agencies situated there, and they are supposed to have personnel in charge of building controls there. Now, for us in Cobon, we are willing to offer ourselves because it's part of where it's not time to be giving blames any longer, but profiling solutions. And in giving that solution, if you don't have the adequate manpower, the appropriate personnel to man those units for you, reach out to us in Cobon. Reach out to the various professional organizations. There can be a way of even a pro bono service. People are there because it's an embarrassment to the nation that we keep having this recurring issue of building collapse, and it's like there's no solution in sight. There's actually solution in sight, but for us, be it Cobon, be it Current, be it Akon, we don't have the power to start enforcing. And so I cannot visit a construction site and see something going wrong and shut down the site. The max we can do, what we can do is to write. Yes, is to report to the appropriate control agency or authority. Now it is left for them to take action. What if actions are not taken? Then construction continues.
So how much of that reporting has Cobon or Nais or Current been doing in the last couple of years?
For like an FCT here, where there are issues, we have what we call the Project Evaluation and Monitoring Unit in Cobon. And time to time, we go around the city to even add value to your work without you paying us. We look, please, can we have your drawing? We are not here, we are not on site to victimize anybody, but to look, what are those things that you are doing that are okay? What are those things that you are not doing that are not okay? And we see how to add value to it. And where there are issues, we'll also notify the appropriate agencies that are responsible. Please take a look at what is happening in XY location and see what you can do.
One other area that is critical in all of the things that are happening, it's in the quality of materials, the inputs. So you can mean well, you would want to keep the standards, deploy correctly, but if what you're deploying is substandard, we can still end up with the same result. How much of this monitoring is being deployed around ensuring that the kind of equipment that go into a building site are the right? I'm talking about the market or the import. I know that is a job for the standard organization in Nigeria, but I mean today, with the benefit of a hindsight, I used to follow my wife to a site in the early days of our marriage when I was not too engaged. And I know that what I used to know as Ion 20, today when I see it, I don't recognize it. It's this tiny.
Exactly.
And it's still called Ion 20. What has happened to that big size that has been shrunk to this level and is still carrying specifications that indicate that you are dealing with this rather than this?
You see, that is why I said the value chain of construction is large. There are so many stakeholders involved. And truth be said, what you just mentioned is the reality. We had a press conference and we are open to discussing or to having a conversation with the Standard Organization of Nigeria also. We've invited them for programs in the past. We've had forums where we need to sit down together and say, these things should not come in the first place. It's not the responsibility off a house owner to start saying this one is not up to standard because he cannot enforce it. But the standard organization, they have the legal backing to stop. In the first point is not allowing it in. Whatever is bad that does not meet the minimum standard should not even come in the first place. And so when you go to the market today, you see your woods, they don't meet the required length. You are shortchanging Nigeria. You're supposed to have 3.6 meters length. But if you, far back as 2014, in Niger State, I want to be specific, you will not see wood of 3 meters length. What you get is 2.7. And so, you are shortchanging...
9.9 meters short.
Yes, you are shortchanging the house owners. And we're talking of trying to make housing affordable and available for the masses. And so they spend more on wood. And you don't get the thickness, the girth of the wood is still compromised, the length is compromised. And so when you do your roof work, you start having roof sagging. All these are distress that are caused as a result of materials. You just mentioned reinforcement is one of it. You go to other items, electrical items, cables and the likes. You see all of these things being shipped into the country, and people are managing. They want to have something over their head. They go for all sorts of materials without even asking a professional.
It's mostly about how much it costs.
Yes.
Because they're trying to get the job done.
Yes, they just want the job done, not minding the repercussion that comes after it. And it's only when you have a professional on ground that can advise you, leave this and go for this.
Builder, let's talk about that professionalism that is also being questioned right now, because we've seen some big structures collapse during construction. We've seen buildings that are not as old as 10 years, for instance, collapse, whether it's in Lagos, in Abuja, and several parts of the country. But what we have not seen is sanctions for those engineers, for those architects, for those builders that were responsible for the structures, for instance. And that's where accountability comes in.
Yes.
Because as much as professional associations like yours are part of the solution, some say they're also part of the problem, because some of these people that are professional civil engineers, quantity surveyors, architects, builders, are the ones responsible for overseeing some of those shoddy jobs that have been done. So in talking about that, how much of an accountability are professional organizations like yours taking to say, listen, if it's one of our guys that is responsible for overseeing that infrastructure that collapsed, that led to the death of tens of people, he needs to be sanctioned, revoking licenses or things like that? How much of that has happened over the years?
I will say up until this moment, there's no registered builder that's been involved in any building collapse in the country. Though we have the ethics and disciplinary committee of the council that looks into issues of misconduct by our members, registered builders. And so it now goes back to what I said earlier, that we will set up panels, investigations will be made. At the end of the day, there are no sanctions. And so if people are not held accountable for their misconduct or inactions, it continues, the circles revolve. And so it's very, very important that where somebody else, it's not for anything, we're trying to correct the future, that it shouldn't happen in the future. If I know that my license will be withdrawn, taken from me, and I'll be charged to court and probably face whatever penalties that may be applied as regards the failure that has occurred, I'll be extra careful. I don't want to involve myself.
Let me get a clarity about what you said. What do you mean by there is no registered builder funding any of the building collapse? Is it that there were builders who were in charge, but they were not registered? Yeah. I'm trying to get that.
Yes.
I mean, essentially.
That's why I'm saying that. When I say there's no registered builder, it means whatever investigation panel has been set in the past, they have not called us to say, Builder Peter Omale with this F number was involved. or is involved in this ongoing project that is happening. And so now, that is where the issue of quackery comes into play. For us, we have what we call the Builders Management Portal. I give you my number, you key it in, you verify that I am licensed to practice for 2024. By December 2024, it has expired. And so we have with other sister professionals like that. But are the stakeholders engaging people to work for them bothered to check? They are not. And so somebody just
I want to build a house.
The next thing you see somebody putting a measuring tape on his waist and they are shouting engineer, builder, architect. At times the person is lost. He doesn't even know the title to give to you. And so today he calls you my architect, tomorrow he calls you my QS, tomorrow he calls you my builder.
All right. One other important thing you said in your opening remarks, and I would like you to give us a sense of how that functions, is the intermittent check.
Yes.
Or checks, if you like. Several of them at various layers. You know, by the time you put your reinforcements, there's a check to ensure that you are confirming with the columns are properly aligned and the strength of materials are the type that can carry the load that and all of that. Has those checks have they disappeared, you know, from our environment? Because we don't see them. What we see is you're passing in the morning and there is a stop construction by whatever agency, and people probably show up in their office, money exchange hands, and whilst that stop construction is still very apparent on the structure, the next day,
couple of months later,
they are putting up a slab, and the house is complete, and nothing is up. However, when you go to building sites in other climes, you see certificates on the gates or somewhere very visible to anybody who cares to listen of all the approvals that have been procured.
Yes.
You know, the land test that was done to show the softness or the soil strength and all of that. You see that approval. You see even the professionals, their certification is published on such that if you want to independently verify whether this building will be a hazard to everybody around it, you can run your checks without talking to anybody. You even say the safety approvals that is required. So you can basically, as a citizen, challenge whether something is being correctly done or not. Why are we finding it difficult to implement those kind of rudiments here?
Okay, that is why it is very important that the regulatory authorities, that falls under their purview. And as professionals, we have proposed, we are yet to see that is actively being enforced everywhere around, especially FCT here, that you must have a project signpost, and that project signpost should display details of professionals involved in that project. But however, what we see is the file number of the approval, and most times it ends there. And also, the issue of stage approval has not disappeared. It's just like you said, as a people, let us do what is right. If you are granting or giving a stage approval, if I undertake to carry out this structure, as I'm approaching to start my site clearance and setting out, I will need to write to development control. They will come and see that I've set out as approved. I will write to them to come and see that I've placed my reinforcements. They will come and check and vet and write me back that it is okay for me to proceed. Now, if you have followed all this process through with someone, we shouldn't have problems, except an act of God. If from design we have checked and we have done all that we need to do, and we follow through this process, everybody goes home and sleep without having any fear. But because at times some of these things are not done, and just like you said, you will see a mark on the building and tomorrow the building moves on. What has changed overnight? So these are the issues
Yeah.
And so because and what we are saying is that enforcement, we must follow through to the latter.
Yeah. Builder, talk to me about this perception that just like what we have with, our security architecture, for instance, when we talk about interagency rivalry, within the professional ecosystem,
Yes.
In the construction industry, there is also a sense that there is some sort of rivalry going on there between builders, architects, quantity surveyors, civil engineers. Because I've been to so many sites, because I have family members who are in the industry, I have friends who go on these sites, and you always get a sense that one of them is trying to one of the other person. It's almost as if one person can do the other person's job or things like that. And more often than not, we always see contractors sometimes, if they get a civil engineer, they want him to run the entire show. If they get an architect, they want him to run the entire show, even though his experience could be vast, but his certification is limited to only architectural designs and things like that. Give me an understanding of some of those clashes that happen as to why it is also some of the reasons why we're seeing so many of these overlaps continue to happen.
Oh, you see, every professional in the built environment, we have the law enabling our practices, and we all know what to do. But the thing is, we are not doing it. I am not an architect. If I have a prospective client that gives me a brief, I should be able to call an architect colleague. Please, can we go and take this brief together? I should be able to call a QS to cost it for me, not me doing the bill. But we are in an environment, and I just mentioned it, where somebody wants to design, do the bill, and implement. It's wrong. And in the course of doing this, you do design at times, maybe on assumption, you didn't even bother to consult the geotechnical engineer to help you also take soil samples to the lab and see if what you are doing, the capacity of that soil can carry. So some of this is not supposed. We are not supposed to have this kind of issue, and that is why, in the course of running, everybody is trying to take everything. The quacks also come into place, and they are having a field day. Most at times, it is because of this issue that you see that the quackery in the industry is becoming more prevalent and is getting stronger and stronger by the day.
So if you can just itemize, from stage to stage very briefly, what if someone is trying to build a house, or is trying to build a hotel, or is trying to build a mall, how many professionals does he need? At what stage does he need them to come in to ensure the integrity of that construction, that building, is not compromised at any stage in time?
Okay, good. When you are doing a design, there's what we call today building information modeling, a software that assists to check area of conflict in your design. And so it's bringing together all the professionals. You have the architect, you have the builder, you have the engineer, civil, structural engineer, you have the mechanical and electrical, that's the service engineers, you have the quantity surveyors, you have the land surveyors. These are the people that are involved as professionals. And so on the table, when we are putting a design on the table, we need to sit around that table and get the input of every professionals. At every stage of the design, there must be critique until we get that design right. And so if we get that design right, I've been in a project, a massive project, but the team lead was an electrical engineer. So he will sit down and listen to all of our brief. And he has his own area of specialization, where I am telling him as a builder, we cannot do this, we cannot do this, allow us to harmonize. We'll sit down with the structural person and the architect, let's remodel this to fit this purpose.
Okay, if I will get you clearly, and I'm sure viewers will also like to do that, it means, in accordance to what Abdullahi is saying, is that as somebody who is desiring to put out a structure, I can talk to anybody on that value chain, who then talks to this other person, because all of these things are technical.
Yes.
Who am I supposed to talk to? Because I know there is somebody within that value chain who understands the language of everybody.
Yes.
And then help to harmonize whatever information is coming from until you have something, that's fit for purpose. Who am I supposed to talk to? who then help to coordinate
Organize
the input,
everything.
or canvas the input of all of these other professionals, whether as people who are permanently engaged for that contract or on a consultancy basis. Who does that? Who plays that role?
Okay. Now in the industry, there are consortiums where you have professionals together, working together. It's possible. Maybe your first point of call could be an architect, it could be a builder, it could be a structural engineer, it could be a QS. But it is now on that person that you have met to tell you that this area is not within my view, my purview. It is his professional responsibility to bring in other professionals that will now advise. And I just told you, we had a theme where the team lead was an electrical engineer.
I suppose that project is a big project, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
But what about the small ones?
from
Like
the
your-
design stage till execution, we were all criticizing our work. We take responsibility, our work, and we made it come out the way what we have in our minds came out the way we wanted it. And so you want to ask, what if it's a small structure?
yeah.
Maybe you want to do a 3-bedroom bungalow. If you have a builder, if you call me, I'll still refer you to an architect to do your design for you. My personal house that I'm staying, a friend likes the design. I say, just give me, let me go to my place and do it. I said, no. You have to localize it to your environment because two buildings cannot
Similar
be the
building.
same.
Requirement
Yes,
for the
it
same-
changes even
especially
within this
because of-
compound. If you are putting two-bedroom units, the parameters will change along the line. The gradient, the topo, and so many things will affect your design. And so you have to advise. I said no. I called in the architect. Please go and see this location and do exact as this person wants. Right? So that is the professional way to go. You don't take it to yourself that you are doing it. I am not one, and I will not do that.
Yeah. Okay. Just before we go, we talk about stress testing some of these buildings.
Yes.
Because there are some telltale signs. You see, cracks on the wall, for instance, which is quite obvious. And we also do have some of these agencies of government that come around occasionally, quarterly, or at specific times to come and stress test some of these big buildings, skyscrapers, or high-rise buildings, as the case may be in Nigeria. Give me a sense of how utilizing those requirements and those occasional visits could help us avoid certain calamities down the line, because I reckon that if it's done regularly, there could be indications that something in the near future could lead to this building collapsing. Therefore, something has to be done before that happens.
Okay, earlier I talked about buildability and maintainability analysis. And it now comes back to our culture of maintenance and routine check as a people. You will realize that the smallest thing in a structure, as bulb, we will wait until it packs off, then we'll replace. Meanwhile, the bulbs have hours that it can work. And after that hour, if it's staying extra 2-3 hours, it's just extra for you. But if it's designed to spend maybe
100 hours.
100 hours for you, after that 100 hours, you're expected to change, right? And so we have what we call building condition survey that the builders do. You can do non-destructive tests also on buildings to just check the members, the structural elements of the building, to see if there are issues. And where there are issues, you retrofit so that it comes back to its normal behavior again. So we need to also start looking at that, doing building condition survey for structures. There are some years ago when we had the past minister of FCT in his first tenure. Part of this environment, we took it upon ourselves to do a condition survey and reported to the government, and most especially we concentrated on abandoned projects that have stayed for so long and they are not being completed. So we went round, did a survey within this Jabi Utako district then. And when you come like that, people get apprehensive. What have they come for? Have they come to pull down our structure? We said, no, we are just coming to check and see what is the status of your building as at today. And so even when that person wants to go back to continue construction, you must check, provide certification to development control. They will request for it before you continue. That I know they are doing. Yes.
Interesting conversations there about all you need to know about putting out a building, and if you have done one, maintaining these buildings or avoiding calamities, as we have come to see recently. If you have your slabs bouncing, if you have your slabs soaking in water, if you have not done most of the things you had mentioned, I mean, it will be in your best interest to call in the professionals and get advice. I'm sure it will not. The price of doing those things will not cut your throat or your leg.
It's actually cheaper to engage a professional than a quack, because look at the children that died in Jos. Their crime that day was they went to seek for knowledge. Which is too bad for us.
I have a boss at the risk of appearing to be advertising somebody, Dr. Ahmed, then of the ATBU. We had gone out for a retreat, and I'm leaving you with this last words. And one of us took ill, and we were saying, just go to any chemist, let them prescribe anything. And, and when we got there, he was trying to understand the qualification of the chemist before accepting any prescription from him. And we kept saying, somebody is dying and you're asking for qualification. I said, look, no matter how long you practice as a nurse, it doesn't make you a doctor. No matter how long you are a vigilante, it doesn't make you a soldier. And no matter how long, in this case, you are a mason, it doesn't make you a builder. And I think those are the lessons that Mr. Ameh, the National Publicity Secretary of the Registered Builders of Nigeria, the Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria, has taken time to educate us this morning. Thank you very much for finding time to be here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure, and we hope that as this conversation progresses, we'll circle back to you to take more educations on what we need to do to keep ourselves and our buildings safe. All right, that's the much we can take. We'll take a quick breather, and when we return, it will be time for the stories that made it to the front page of select national newspapers this morning.